Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, thanks for joining us on the programme this evening.
To them and to this House, I offer my heartfelt apologies.
The Prime Minister says sorry after that party. Will it be enough for the families who lost loved ones to COVID?
Putting the brakes on smart motorways after concerns over safety, but work on 2 of our major schemes will continue.
A world first for Amelia. We report on the treatment aimed at stopping her from going blind.
Taking shape, a first look at what will be the new home of one of our famous old football clubs.
And it was taking shape to be a lovely day here at Widnes this morning. I'll have the all-important weather details a little later on.
So first tonight, the apology, he said, was heartfelt. But Boris Johnson's statement in the Commons has left some North West families who's lost loved ones during the pandemic unmoved.
The Prime Minister admitted that he had attended a Bring Your Own Bottle gathering at number 10 during England's first lockdown. He said he believed it was a work event.
But the calls for him to resign have continued. We'll have some of your views on this in just a moment after this report from Victoria Grimes.
My dad wasn't just my dad, he was like my best friend. You know, that's what I do really miss every day, you know, his voice and his presence.
Richard Mawson died alone in hospital on the 17th of April 2020. His family not there to hold his hand because they weren't allowed. Today, the Prime Minister apologised to those who stuck to the rules when Downing Street didn't.
I know that millions of people across this country have made extraordinary sacrifices, and I know the rage they feel with me and with the government I lead when they think that in Downing Street itself the rules are not being properly followed by the people who make the rules. There were things we simply did not get right, and I must take responsibility.
But for Richard's son Jamie, watching it at home, the Prime Minister's words were worthless.
What was going through your head when you watched PMQs then, Jamie?
It's the biggest insult, or the ultimate insult for families like ourselves and thousands of others who have lost loved ones. When my dad passed away on a ventilator, I remember crying my eyes out over the telephone to the nurse, begging her, would she hold his hand while he passed away, because we weren't allowed to go and see him. And then on May the 2nd, you know, we have his funeral and we're only allowed 10 people. And then to think 2 weeks later, he's having a party. It's just absolutely disgusting. It's so disrespectful.
Jamie's story isn't unique. Hannah Brady from Wigan lost her father to COVID in May 2020. Today, Labour leader Keir Starmer reminded Boris Johnson he'd met Hannah in the very same garden where the drinks took place.
That the Prime Minister had partied in that same garden the very day her dad's death certificate was signed. What Hannah wants to know is this. Does the Prime Minister understand why it makes her feel sick to think about the way that he's behaved?
Hannah's now called for Boris Johnson to resign. If he doesn't, she said, then his MPs have a moral duty to remove him.
This man needs to resign, you know, on behalf of not just my family, the family who have lost loved ones and the British public.
And with so many having sacrificed so much, the Prime Minister's apology is unlikely to be the end of this story. Victoria Grimes, ITV News.
Well, not surprisingly, lots of you have been in touch over this. Anthony Bent, for example, tweeted us to say, while all this was going on in Downing Street, we were working incredibly hard at Chester Crematorium, where I'm employed. I don't remember any parties in the Garden of Remembrance. It was horrendous, coupled with my own dad dying and only 30 being allowed at his funeral.
Yeah, this one from Janet Hooper in Liverpool. He should resign. I worked for the NHS and was redeployed to work early and late shifts on every bank holiday. My mum had dementia and I wasn't allowed to visit her. She has since passed away.
Hayley Smallman, his audacity to say, I know their anguish. Really, Boris? Do you know what it's like to have 9 people with you as you have a 20-minute slot to say goodbye to your daughter? The trauma I am left with for a lifetime, on top of my grieving, by those rules that were put in place, is unforgivable.
Adrian Tomlin in Poynton in Cheshire says, on the face of it, it is ridiculous, but unlike some, I am prepared to wait until Sue Gray has concluded her inquiry and her findings are announced.
Mark Hitchin and crew, I have voted Tory for a while now. Not next time. I know people who had to let relatives die in hospital alone because of these rules. Enough is enough.
It's from Paul Burke in Liverpool. It's disgusting. No inquiry needed. He was there. He was wrong. He should resign.
Yeah, and just to round these off, I mean, please keep your views coming, so we really do want to see them. But just to round this off, we should point out that we have tried to make contact with all of our North West Conservative MPs today, because we did want to know what they had to say about this apology. So far, though, none has come back to us, but that invitation remains in place, and we would still like to hear from you tonight or tomorrow or Friday or whenever you can fit us in. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly does. Let's get some further reaction from Westminster, where our political correspondent David Wood has been following all the developments of today.
So, how is Boris Johnson's position as leader tonight?
I think it's fair to say the Prime Minister has 1 foot in number 10 tonight and 1 foot out of it. Yes, his supporters are certainly rallying round and trying to pull him firmly back into Downing Street, but it's very hard to get those supporters to speak out on camera. And those that want him out, well, they are certainly trying to mount rebellions. William Ragg, the Hazelgrove MP, has this evening spoken to Radio 4 and said that he wasn't reassured by what the Prime Minister said and that his position is untenable. Christian Wakeford saying, how do you defend the indefensible? He tweets to say, you can't. He goes on to say we need openness, trust and honesty in our politics now more than ever, and that starts from the top. But I have to say the overwhelming feeling I'm getting from the majority of Tory MPs that I've been speaking to is that they're still yet to make up their minds. They can't work out whether the Prime Minister's words today have improved his situation or made it worse. Many want the internal investigation into what happened in Downing Street to be finished before they make up their minds. That is likely to be at some point in the next 2 weeks. But rather ominously for the Prime Minister this evening, one Tory backbencher that I've just spoken to says that the question amongst rebels is no longer when they think it's time to push the Prime Minister out, but merely who is the right person to replace him.
David Wood, our reporter there. Now then, on to a completely different subject. The aim was to ease congestion for drivers on some of our busiest stretches of motorway in the northwest. But tonight, work on some of those smart motorways is being put on hold because of concerns about safety.
Effectively, they have no hard shoulders, so if your car breaks down, there is nowhere to escape. And that means you are at risk of someone driving into you. Tim Scott has tonight's report.
A sensible way of keeping traffic flowing, or a dangerous scheme that puts motorists and their passengers at risk. There's sections of smart motorways across the northwest, from the M6 and the M62 to the M56 and the M60. And today the government have announced that work on constructing some new sections of smart motorway is being held off until more data on their effectiveness and safety can be collated.
Critics of smart motorways claim they're basically unsafe. They say the practice of opening up a hard shoulder when traffic is heavy and then closing it down when traffic is light confuses drivers. They also say that on smart motorways where there's no hard shoulder, there simply aren't enough in the way of refuge areas for broken down vehicles, and that is putting the lives of the occupants of those vehicles at risk.
Fractured pelvis, fractured collarbone, punctured lung, fractured ribs, broken nose, cuts and bruises everywhere.
Ben French was seriously injured when his van was hit by a lorry in Cheshire after he'd had a blowout and had stopped on the inside lane of the M6 smart motorway. He doesn't think they're safe.
It's not until something happens to you that you realise that they really were a terrible idea. And it just scares me to death now driving up in there. I'll just avoid them as much as I can now.
Today's announcement from government means they'll be pausing some smart motorway upgrades until at least 2025. Other stretches, which are over 50% complete, will still go ahead. The move has been welcomed by motoring organisations who say more data is needed about smart motorway safety.
The current data is only based on a stretch of 29 miles of motorway, and you cannot ascertain from that whether they're safe or not. So I think it is the right decision.
The northwest motorways affected by today's announcement are the M62 from Rochdale into Yorkshire, where work will be paused, sections of the M56 near Manchester Airport, and the M6 junctions 21A at Croft to 26 at Orrell near Wigan. They will still go ahead as they're now over 50% complete. The next 4 years will see more data being collected on smart motorways before any further decisions are made. Tim Scott, ITV News.
Yeah, Benjamin Frenchy survived that crash in Tim's report. Certainly had a lucky escape, didn't he? On to other news. And a woman has appeared in court charged with the unlawful killing of her 2-year-old neighbour in Lancashire.
George Hines died in a gas explosion at his home. Our correspondent Rob Smith was at Lancaster Magistrates Court.
The woman accused of killing her 2-year-old neighbour came to this court on crutches today and appeared before magistrates under the gaze of that toddler's mother. George Hines died in a gas explosion in Heysham last May. 2 houses collapsed in the blast. A third was badly damaged. Sharon Greenham, who's 51 and now of Bowness Road in Lancaster, is accused of manslaughter and theft of gas. Her husband, Darren Greenham, who's 44, faces the same charges. A third defendant, Paul Marsh, who's 54 and from Banks Crescent in Heysham, is accused of criminal damage and theft of gas. George's mum, Vicky, who was in court today, released a tribute to her son after his death, describing him as precious, as beautiful. She and George's dad, Stephen, said there were, quote, no words to convey their loss, their devastation at that loss. Mr Greenham will have a hearing before this magistrates court later this month. Mrs Greenham and Mr Marsh will appear before Preston Crown Court next month.
Merseyside police are investigating a possible hit and run after the body of a man was found in St Helens. Officers were called to Mossbank Road early today. Police say they're working to identify the man who died. A man has been arrested.
And some news to warm our hearts, thanks to the generosity of our viewers. Last night we met the family of 6-year-old Isabel Grundy, who has a rare form of cancer. Her parents are raising money to get her specialist treatment in America. After they told us their story on Granada Report, more than £25,000 was donated.
Yeah, we wish you all the best.
Still to come tonight.
Lessons from the past, a new telling of a medieval witch hunt.
And it was a lovely start to the day here in Liverpool, but some places were rather cloudy today, especially in the Pennines. What's going to happen tonight, tomorrow and the rest of the week? Find out a little later on in the programme.
But before that, the 8-year-old girl from Cheshire who has become the first person in the world to get pioneering treatment aimed at stopping her going blind.
Amelia Carroll is one of 50 youngsters in the UK to have the genetic disorder which also affects their ability to walk and talk.
Yeah, families managed to raise the money needed for an 18-month trial of the treatment, which they hope could transform their children's lives. Andy Bonner reports.
Yeah. Playing at the park is not something Amelia Carroll's family take for granted. She's only 8, yet her eyesight is failing. She's got a form of Batten disease called CLN2. Children with it experience seizures, followed by a gradual decline in their ability to walk, speak and see. Now a treatment used to stop their brains from deteriorating could also halt their blindness.
Amelia was the first in the world, so it is groundbreaking. It's never been done before. And then, yeah, there's 7 children alongside her who are getting this treatment.
We don't know yet if this drug is working. The hope is that it does work and it does stop the eyesight going. So future children with CLN2 can then get that treatment. Because if you can save their eyesight, the quality of life that they can then have with the brain infusions will be absolutely fantastic.
It'll be absolutely life-changing.
Families like Amelia's helped raise the money to try the treatment on a compassionate use basis. Experts at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital inject the drug directly into the back of Amelia's eye, every 2 months.
She's doing amazing. She's doing incredibly well. We are more nervous than she is. She just takes everything as it comes. She's absolutely, she's incredible. She loves going to hospital. She loves all the doctors and nurses. She's just amazing. It's like a little day out for her.
Amelia's brother Ollie turns 11 tomorrow. He too has the condition, but it is too late to save his sight.
We've witnessed Ollie go blind, and it's horrific, absolutely horrific, and we're witnessing that the same happen to Amelia at the same time. So if you've got hope, you go for it, and that's what we've got. If it doesn't work, we can hold our hands up and say we've tried.
Life expectancy without the treatment is just 10 to 12 years. It's not known what effect the drug will have on that number, or whether this new trial will work. But Amelia's family want children to have every chance for the best quality of life. Andy Bonner, ITV News, Poynton.
Yeah, and we're keeping everything crossed for you.
On to sport now, and a first look at Everton Football Club's new home. Chris.
Yeah, still very much a work in progress, but the first blocks of Everton's new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock have been put in place. The ground, with a capacity approaching 53,000, should welcome its first supporters in about 2.5 years' time. David Chisnall was today given a first glimpse around BMD.
Overseen by the Liverpool skyline, Everton's new £500 million home is taking shape. The waterfront site is a hive of activity as this ambitious build transforms Bramley-Moore Dock into a 53,000-seater stadium. Everton fan Alex Craig is one of the project managers, and she gave us a tour of this incredible feat of engineering.
You've brought us to the middle of what used to be the dock. This will be the pitch, but right now it's just a heck of a lot of sand, isn't it? Tell us about filling this.
Yeah, so it's been a massive engineering project in itself. The sort of infill of the dock took around 2 months in total, and it was a 24/7 operation, collecting sand from the Irish Sea, and we roughly had around 500,000 cubic metres worth of sand, which for context is around 185 Olympic swimming pools worth.
Well, Everton first played at Goodison Park in 1892, but they'll be leaving to move to this new home in 2024. It's a stadium built for the future and built to be the most sustainable in the Premier League.
This is the first piece of the stadium.
Yeah, it is. It's the first piece of structure that's above ground. Building a new stadium, you've got a unique opportunity from day one to embed initiatives that perhaps we would love to do in our current stadium, but for structural reasons or for reasons of the stadium's age and things that we can't do. So we can provide a roof structure that's strong enough to hold the PV panels that we'll have on site. We'll future-proof the car park to provide all electric vehicle charging points. Things like that, initiatives that we can get in place from day one will be great.
Well, the stadium development hasn't been without its controversy and was mentioned by UNESCO as it stripped Liverpool of its World Heritage status. Despite that setback, the club are keen to preserve the dock's history.
So why is it important to keep part of the heritage here?
So it's been a massive part of the project from day one. The hydraulic tower that you can see just to my right here, it was a derelict building. We're hoping to bring that back into use. It will be some form of cultural asset that we'll be able to utilise to celebrate Everton's history and the history of Bramley-Moore Dock.
When completed, it'll be one of the best stadiums in the country. Everton will just hope they have one of the best teams to play in it. David Chisnall, ITV News, Liverpool.
And let's take a look at what's coming up at 6:30 with Romilly.
The Prime Minister admits he did attend that Downing Street party in May 2020. Boris Johnson says he believed the Bring Your Own Booze gathering was a work event. Labour accuse him of lying to the public. Prince Andrew will face a civil trial in America over allegations of sexual assault. And safety concerns about smart motorways caused their rollout to be paused. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Well, next, it was one of the most famous court trials in the region's history, even if it was back in the 1600s.
Yeah, even before I was reporting on the region. The trial led to the Pendle witches being put to death. It was all part of a witch hunt throughout Europe that went on for 200 years.
And a fascinating exhibition about them has just opened at Lancaster Castle, where the Pendle witches were held. Paul Crone has the story.
entering a world which reveals a grim time period in our history, taking us from the city of Lancaster to the moody surroundings of Pendle Hill in East Lancashire. The I Am Witch exhibition, currently showing at the Story in Lancaster, hopes to highlight and repair the devastating witch hunts which took place across Europe and the UK between 1450 and 1750.
If animals died, women were accused of being witches and casting curses. When crops failed, if storms happened, people were accused of witchcraft for those things too.
Around 4,000 women in England and Scotland were either hung or burnt at the stake during the so-called burning times. Originally regarded as wisdom keepers, mass hysteria then portrayed them as Satan worshippers. The exhibition of hand-printed and stitched individual pieces of fabric has been done by over 1,000 women worldwide and created by the Silver Spoons Collective, 33 UK-based women working to heal the issues inherited from the witch hunts.
Under torture, they were forced to give the names of other women, and so that's caused created a wedge in the trust between women, and I think we still very much carry that today. Many women talk about not feeling fully safe or not being able to trust their other women, or it's easier to hang out with the guys, or women are more difficult, and I think that's part of the legacy.
Back in 1612, Lancaster Castle was at the centre of perhaps the country's most famous witch hunt involving the Pendle witches. In total, 10 people were found guilty of witchcraft, sentenced to death and then hung.
I was just familiar with the Pendle witch trial, so when I became aware of the work, I was just really amazed that there was, thousands of women that were persecuted, and I didn't know that at 40. So I just wanted to highlight that and bring that to people's awareness.
I Am Witch runs until January the 28th in Lancaster. And even though 1450 seems a long time ago, remember what we always say about history. How can we know who we are and where we're going if we don't know where we've come from? Paul Crone, ITV News.
Yeah, the terrible injustice of it all. OK, time for the weather now. Here's John.
That sunshine really made your eyeshadow pop, And you put the wipe in the bin, not the toilet.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Go ahead, Queen.
Hello. Which type of weather you had today depended really on where you were. Some places like Bolton here this morning had rather cloudy skies, and up towards the Pennines, Rochdale way, it was a bit misty and a bit cloudy to start with. The tide was out in Morecambe, but so was the sunshine here around lunchtime, and a little bit further up the bay at Arnside. What a glorious day it was there, overlooking the Kent estuary. And the Christmas tree, that's been taken down until next year. Now we've got high pressure on the weather chart here at the moment, and we keep that for the rest of this week, and we keep it for the weekend as well, keeping the rain-faring fronts up to the north there at bay. So we do have a lot of dry weather to come. Certainly overnight tonight it's going to be dry. The cloud will come and go. Where there are extended cloud breaks, we'll see a touch of frost like here over Cheshire, and maybe a little bit of mistiness developing like over South Lakeland. Low temperatures over Cheshire, -2 Celsius. There's this morning's beautiful sunrise looking over the Mersey towards Liverpool from the Wirral, up at 8:23 tomorrow, setting at 4:17. So again tomorrow that cloud will come and go. The easy bit is it's going to stay dry throughout the day. The frost will lift over Cheshire, and most of us should see some reasonable spells of sunshine tomorrow. It's a quiet day, light winds, expected highs around 7 or 8 Celsius. And through tomorrow evening, little change. Some extended cloud breaks over Cheshire will give another frost. So first thing on Friday morning, expect a touch of frost, light winds, some nice spells of sunshine during the day, and a high temperature of 7 Celsius. Enjoy your evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Those eyebrows are unreal.
Loving all that blue sky today. Even the sky was blue at Everton's new ground, wasn't it? Lovely.
On tomorrow's programme, we check out the Hot Wheels monster trucks coming to Liverpool. Look at those pictures. Incredible machines.
How good are they? I wouldn't mind to go in one of those.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, be sure to join us for that at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Until then, have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.